Today. It says we're
Good,
live.
thanks, Graham.
Yeah.
Welcome anybody who's just jumping on. We're going to call this a stand on the page, I think is what we're going to call it.
Oh,
a few interviews with some interesting people, and Graham from Aussie Patriots is here today. So I'm looking forward to having a chat. I'm really excited about our relationship. So looking forward to getting stuck into it. But how many minutes have we got? You're the one with the watch.
Okay, it was 3 minutes to go.
Okay.
And yeah. So have you, just out of curiosity, have you read that Biosecurity Act yet?
No, it's light reading apparently. So looking forward to it.
It's only about, well, if you add all the amendments on it, it's about 300 pages. But you can scan through it. I always go to the original piece of legislation and then read that and then see what they've added. So it's interesting to see exactly what they have. But the thing that sticks in it is the way that somebody has to be served before they can do anything, and that's not happening. And that is by a biosecurity officer.
Mm.
And then if you refuse, they have to go back to their boss and get an order to enforce it.
And that has to be a designated officer, doesn't it? It can't just be any
biosecurity officer, not a police officer.
Yeah.
Biosecurity officers are specifically trained, just like customs officers and immigration officers. They're all trained in specifics as to what it's about. So they have to know about what a biosecurity risk is, and that's interesting. And this is the thing that Serene at the moment. She's using their own act against them. Whether or not, the biggest problem is because it's a corporate or a quorum court, which means it doesn't have the authority of the law. They can make any decision they like. So they can just say, no, we're not going to hear it.
Yeah. And this is why the law side of this excites me a lot all of a sudden, because we need to use this back on themselves, and it's going to be their undoing if we do it correctly. If we all stand up and use this correctly and we all know our rights, then what they're trying to do isn't going to work from their own rules, even if they move the goalposts and change them as they're going. And
that's exactly right. And this the case that Sol has got at the moment, that Jackie Dundee's working with him. It's a big test for all of these actions that can come in the future, and already there's stuffing him around. So, I mean, they expected that, but it's going to take a lot of resolve and a lot of strength of character, and he's going to need a lot of support behind him, because they are going to make him jump through hoops, because the fact that it's been accepted into a docket means that it's going to have some sort of determination on what he's asking for. So it's a test case, big one. And we've got a lot of people watching it, a lot of the guys around Australia that are into the common law and into writing documents and affidavits and all that sort of stuff. They're all waiting and, sort of on tenterhooks, waiting to see what happens.
And all of these cases need a groundswell foundation of bodies, people on streets. We need to show our support with our bodies in a constant. And so that's why I got so excited about matching up the stand in the parks with you guys, because we're a perfect match.
Yeah.
How are we going for time there before we?
Right on 8 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on A Stand on the Page. I'm Brady Gunn. For those of you who don't know what a stand in the park is, we make a stand. 55 locations all over the world now, launching in the UK this week. Every Sunday, 10 to 11 a.m, we make a stand in parks. It's a constant stand, not so much a protest as it is as a stand, and it's been really valuable for individuals. And now we're looking to use that foundation of what you've always called people on streets to moving into names on sheets, which brings me to the amazing Graeme Jeffs, who's joining us tonight from Aussie Patriots. And Graeme's been in the constitutional and common law game for how long now, Graeme? Welcome.
Oh, thanks, Brady. A long time. Let's not go into let's not put numbers on anything, but a long time. But we're thanks very much for the introduction. It was very good. We're excited too about aligning with you guys, because you are exactly what we want our Aussie Patriots to do, and that is to stand in their own truth. Because at the end of the day, we are entitled to be heard. We are entitled to move around. And, without going into the nitty gritty of why that is, there are certain that most people don't know about: common law, unalienable or inalienable rights, and our constitution, which was written back in the 1900s with the input of the people of Australia through constitutional conventions. And that's the document that we rely on at the moment for our rule of law in Australia.
So the problem, and it was a problem for me, and I'm working through it at the moment, that I've had with constitutional law, is that it makes so much sense on every level, from the surface level right down to when the further you get into the nitty gritty of it. I mean, it's the law. Yeah. It still seems so pie in the sky, and so we need to sort of match up people like I was and sort of still am with what Aussie Patriots are doing. So why don't you explain what constitutional law is in 30 seconds, which means a minute?
Well, constitutional law, quite simply, is the law of the land. Our constitution was designed on certain things. It was designed on human rights. It was designed around human rights, common law, which was the common law of ye olde England at the time, and also the King James Bible. Now, Australia is a Christian nation. We were founded as a Christian nation, and we still are a Christian nation, albeit we are a multicultural nation. So we're accepting of lots of things. But one thing that we can't be wishy-washy about is the rule of law in this country. And the Constitution is only 28 pages, if you count the back and front pages, 28 pages long. Now, there is a document that is called an annotated version, which is over 1,000 pages. But in essence, our Constitution is a document that was designed by the people, for the people, and it was designed for people who would go into our parliaments to govern the Australian people at the will of the Australian people. That's it in a nutshell. That has been changed without the consent of the people. The last section in the Constitution, section 128, says that the Constitution is indissoluble, which means it cannot be dissolved, save a majority vote of the people. So the only way that the Constitution can be changed in any way, shape or form is by a referendum, majority vote of the people of Australia.
So when did that change, and why didn't it go to a referendum?
Okay, we go back to 1973, which is the most, I suppose, the most treasonous part.
Were you born then?
Yes, actually, I was. Yes, I was getting along. I was born in 55. Thank you for mentioning that, Brady. In 1973, the Whitlam government decided that they would make a few changes. And there's a little thing called hiding in plain sight. If you're looking at something suspicious, you're not looking straight ahead. You're generally looking to the side. And so what they did was they changed two acts of Parliament, the Acts Amendments Act and also the Royal Styles and Titles Act. Now, we're a constitutional monarchy. A lot of people may not like that. A lot of people are British, and that may be so. But at the moment, we're still a constitutional monarchy, which means that the leader, the only other stakeholder in our constitution is the British Crown throne. The person sitting on that throne is really irrelevant because it's the throne and the crown that we have the agreement with. So the people of Australia and the British monarchy have a partnership in our lawful constitution. And what happened was that Gough Whitlam fraudulently put legislation to the Crown for assent, which was not given because there was no referendum. So two major changes, and we've got these documents available for people to read. So we're not just talking airy-fairy here. We have black and white proof of this happening. So those two changes changed Australia forever, because it created the Queen of Australia. Now, a lot of people think, oh, Queen of Australia, that's Queen Elizabeth II. No, it's not. Queen Elizabeth II is a British monarch and the head of the Commonwealth, which we are part of. The Queen of Australia is a fiction created by the Whitlam government, and at the same time, they created the Australian Government Corporation, of which the Queen of Australia is the head figurehead. Okay, so that means that they created a fiction And that fiction was cemented into place in 1986 by the Hawke government when they brought in the Australia Act, which was also created and put into law without the consent of the Australian people, because what it did was it removed Australia from the British Commonwealth, which is a definite and a monumental change to our constitution. And anyone out there that's listening to this or watching this can check how many referendums we've had in Australia. We've had 8 successful, over 40 referendums, only 8. None of them cover the 1973 treason or the 1986 treason. So don't believe me, ask us and we'll show you the proof. And this is why we have been accumulating, if you like, or gathering together Aussie Patriots so that they can learn the truth and start to act against the corporations that poses our governments and sit in our parliaments.
And so who did they sell us out to?
Well, basically, we have a trustee, which is the United Nations. Now, a lot of people probably that, and that is just too long a story to go into. But basically, what happened is that people say they're an Australian citizen. You're not an Australian citizen unless you want to be one, because a citizen is of the citizenship. That's maritime law. We are not under maritime law, but that's what they've created. So they've taken the law offshores, and this is where it gets very complicated. But the most important thing to remember is that our constitution is constant. It's indissoluble, which means it cannot be dissolved unless the people agree to dissolve it. It cannot be changed unless the people agree to change it. And we can show, in our history, and look, we can go all the way back to 1908 when the politicians created preferential voting and decided that they needed to get more votes for two major parties, and that's where the two-party preferred system came in. Also unlawful, also unconstitutional. But we focus on what we can prove, and what we can prove is the 1973 breaches of our constitutional rights and the 1986 breaches of our constitutional rights. So in a nutshell, everything that happened after 1973 under the Queen of Australia is not law. Now, it's easy for me to sit here and say that. Easy for us to reverse that and to reinstate or restore constitutional law and constitutional government in Australia, because at the moment they have the numbers against us because we're asleep. We don't want to listen to this. We don't want to hear about it. We just want to make sure that it doesn't affect us personally. Well, you know what? It does, because everything that you do now is an agreement or a contract with a corporation, and that's where it went off the rails. We are the Commonwealth of Australia, which means that all of us Australians own the wealth commonly. So Commonwealth and Commonwealth is two different words with two different meanings. Commonwealth, is the Federation of States. Okay, we don't have hard borders here. There is no border between Melbourne and Sydney, or between Sydney and Adelaide, or Queensland and Perth. There are no hard borders. Anyone that tells you there's a hard border, they're full of shit, to be quite honest. And we can prove that also, because it's in our constitution that there are no borders, and every Australian has the right to free travel between states without restriction. So there's a lot of things that have happened over the last, since 1973, but lately even more so. And we have a groundswell of people who started asking questions. They're not getting the answers they need because everything is being censored. And that's what the Australian, our lawful rebellion and the Aussie Patriots role is going to do. And with your help, Brady, with the Stand in the Park, we're going to get the message out to more people more quickly so that we can show people the truth.
So who is running Australia then? I mean, if it's not the people, it's not an elected government, and it's a corporation, then I mean, is it a corporation, or is it another country, or what are those?
No, the Australian Government Corporation is registered in Washington DC. It is a corporation. It is.
So who gets the profits then?
Well, this is the area that is very, very complicated as to what happens to the money, because, as you know, we get a lot of money through, it goes into consolidated revenue, and yet we still have to borrow money to build things. You see, we have given away the assets and the resources of our nation, our mineral resources, our natural resources, and also sold off a lot of our government assets under the direction of the UN and the what they call the New World Order, which is the globalization of the world, which means that they want to make sure that only a very, very small few people at the top make the rules for everyone else, and the wealth under them is spread out across the world. So in other words, we could find ourselves funding, well, we already do, funding other nations that are poorer than us by giving them money, which is ridiculous. So the money goes into consolidated revenue. Where it goes after that, we don't know, because there is no transparency. We don't know, how much money comes in and how much money goes out, because when you read the federal government budget or even the state budget, it tells you nothing. It tells you absolutely nothing. It's all mumbo jumbo, and it's smoke and mirrors, because they don't want you to know how much money comes in.
And then we just borrow money at the end of it.
And that's exactly right. But they always say, have you ever heard any politician say, gee, we made a lot of money last month, we're doing really, really well? All you hear is, oh, we had to go out and borrow another $50 billion yesterday because we couldn't pay our debt. What debt? Why have we got debt? We got one of the most countries in the world, and yet we're broke. We got no money.
Who are they borrowing this money from?
Well, they're borrowing it from the World Bank, which is again the UN, and funded by. We know who they're funded by, and we're not going to.
So, has this been a puppet show for this long, driving the world into debt to these guys so that they can bankrupt us on purpose, which is what we're seeing the end of now, so that they can eliminate the middle class?
Well, look, when you think about some of the treaties and pacts and free trade agreements that have been signed, by politicians all around the world, not just in Australia, but all around the world, you think to yourself, even the common man in the street, and they talk about the pub test, you say to yourself, how does that help that country? I mean, it certainly helps the country that can dump all their crap in the other country and get paid for it. But how does that help the country where the stuff gets dumped? And we've had that problem here in Australia for a long time with imported food, fruits and things like that have been absolutely devastating for our own industries here in Australia. And then we have the treaties that say, oh yeah, we'll agree to do whatever another country does. And this is not an ally. This is an agreement, a treaty, a pact, or something like that we will take direction from another country. Well, that's in our constitution. We decide who we deal with. So all of those agreements should get the consent of the Australian people.
So how do we take back our power?
Numbers, mate. It's all about numbers. And, like we've had statisticians working on, where we sit at the moment. If we look at it as a mathematical equation, because that's how the politicians work it. They work it on votes. They work it on the electorates and votes. That's why they change the electoral boundaries from time to time. When you think, why have they done that? It's because they want to make sure that the people that are in their preferred parties have enough people to get votes from. So it's all about numbers. At the moment, they are many and we are few.
But sorry to cut you off, but is there a way through the political system for us though?
Yes, there is.
I mean, do we have to run ourselves and then get the votes, or are we just entering into their game and just mugs?
Look, there's two schools of thought on that, Brady. One is that the people that sit in the parliaments at the moment are guilty of treason or misprision of treason. Misprision of treason means that they know there's treason, but they didn't speak up. So the two schools of thought are we should go in and try and fight them from the way out. Now, history is littered with people who said they were going to do that, and I'll just mention a few: Pauline Hanson, Nick Xenophon, Corey Bernardi, Darren Hinch, Jackie Lambie, and now we've got Rod Cullerton, who did a tilt and got kicked out. And then we've got Rick Bozzi, and we've got all these people, Bob Catter, and all these people that say that they are the saviours. But as soon as they get into the system, and it is a system, and it's a corporate system, they fold up like deck chairs on the Titanic, and they do nothing. Because I challenge politicians every day that I see them on social media when they say, oh, look what we did today. We voted against this, or we voted against that. And the first thing I ask them is, well, why don't you stand in the parliament and ask the government why they are not giving the people their constitutional right of freedom of movement, of freedom of speech, of freedom of medical treatment and things like that. And I don't even get a response.
Yeah.
So,
and is there another way around the political system, or do we just need to see the world end to rebuild it?
No, there is. Look, I mean, look, Wayne Glue, and people say that he's he's an ex-copper and he tilts at windmills. But in 2019, Wayne, in January, he lodged a Article 61 Magna Carta lawful rebellion against the government in Australia to the High Court in the UK, which sits as the Privy Council. Now, because our constitution has a stakeholder, which is the British Commonwealth, we went to the British Commonwealth and said to them, through Wayne and his Article 61, we're not happy with what's going on. We need you to investigate. And there's other people who have lodged these things over the years, but they've never been followed through. And the reason that we are confident that we can get some sort of determination, because we only need one of two decisions. One decision is that, yes, they agree and they prorogue, which means suspend all the parliaments until there can be a proper royal commission. Because at the moment, there is no such thing as a royal commission because the Queen of Australia cannot hold a royal commission. Or the British say, look, we don't want to be involved in your politics anymore. And so either one of those decisions would create a constitutional event which would require a referendum of the people. So either the referendum would be, to dismiss all of the politicians and the political parties and start again, or to remove the British Commonwealth from our constitution completely, which would also require the dismissal of all the political parties and politicians, so that we could then get together as a nation and decide where we're going to go. And that's what we need to do.
And this is kind of where I think we lose people, and I got lost as well, is that just seems so pie in the sky to me.
Right. Well, under our constitution, it's the will of the people. Now, what we're saying to the British is that there's no more barons, there's no more, because the barons were the landholders and the people were under them, which is common. So the commoners only had the rights given to them by the barons, and the barons only had the rights given to them by the monarch. So we've extrapolated that a little bit, and our method, if you like, or our MO has been accepted, because our Wayne's Article 61 was accepted and receipted by the High Court. Now, a lot of documents have been sent to the UK, to the Privy Council. They've been sent back straight away saying, speak to the Governor General. The British monarchy does not get involved in the politics of countries in the Commonwealth. That wasn't done this time. It was accepted and it was receipted, and we're waiting now. Obviously, we've got all this this COVID flu thing flying around, so it stopped everything, and especially in the UK, because they're in lockdown, have been for a long time. So the courts are not operating over there. But when they are, we get to present our case. And we want to present a case with the will of the people. So that's the Aussie Patriots role. We want people to stand up and be counted and declare that they want our lawful constitution reinstated and the corporations removed from our parliaments.
Yeah, and that's where it doesn't sound like pie in the sky at all. If there's 20 million people backing this, and I mean, it's only an analogy, but sort of with pitchforks on the street, calling the shots, then it's not pie in the sky at all. So, but I think we need to start small for people and just really get this groundswell foundation of people. That has to happen in the physical, which is why these people getting together in parks so it's going to be so great to leverage these groups and communities that we're building. And I think that for all the standards that are watching, we need to sign the roll. We need to learn the constitutional law. We need to learn the laws that can buy us as much time as we can on a day-to-day basis, because a lot of what the cops are doing in the street right now is illegal. So we need to use the law, know the law, and you don't have any rights if you don't know them. So there's a real. I'm not going to use the word pie in the sky again, but there's a real heady destination here. But in the meantime, we need to learn the street level laws and then slowly match them up and network together and just build numbers. And so sign the roll. What else can we do? What else can we do today?
And that's the other thing that we want people to understand too. It's not just the action in the UK. there's lots of other things that can be done here in Australia. But the thing is, you don't, one person, and I mean, Brady, one of the reasons I started looking into what you were doing, Brady, was because I kept on hearing about this guy that was standing on his own in Hyde Park. And I'm thinking to myself, but why am I hearing this? What is he a little bit, bit funny?
I wondered that myself a few times, funnily enough.
But the thing is, after a while, I thought, you know what, this guy's really he's got the right recipe, because he's going to stand there until someone comes and stands with him. And then they're going to stand with him until someone else comes. And I thought to myself, it is the most purest way to get the message out, and that is stand in your own truth. And that stuck with me the first time I heard you say that. And that's what we want people to do, to stand in your own truth. But the thing is, when you're fighting a large corporation, you need a lot of people standing in their truth behind you. And there can be one person in the front, there can be 10 people in front, there can be 100 people in the front, but there's got to be a lot more behind. And this is what the Aussie Patriots role is all about. And this is why we like a stand in the park, because it's raw, it's real, it's truth, and it's in a park. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Someone said to me not so long ago that free men don't protest because they don't have to, because a free man knows his rights. And this is what we have to get into people's heads. We don't want demonstrations where people punch horses and spit on other people and abuse police. We don't want that, because that's just playing their game. And that's what they want us to do, because on their media on their corporate owned media, and they can spin everything and they can make it look like we're just a bunch of rabble. And the word rebellion is a word of fighting, which you put in front of it lawful. And that's what we're doing. We are lawfully rebelling. There's also in common law, which entitles everyone to civil disobedience, but it doesn't entitle you to civil violence or to violence against other living, breathing humans. Because common law says do no harm, and it says don't steal other people's stuff, and it says do unto others as you would do unto them. Our Constitution was written based around that. And so we want people to stand in their truth, but also to respect each other. Community.
Yeah, and I guess that gets challenged when you've got people who are meant to be protecting us breaking that law themselves and attacking innocent people. But you're right, absolutely, and that's why sort of Stand in the Park was designed like that. So I'm not sure. We said we were going to keep this to half an hour.
24 minutes.
Okay, because I think it's really interesting to hear about what's happening at the moment with some of the lawsuits that are happening. So why don't we talk about Sol?
All right. Well,
and what's happening down there?
Can't say a lot about what Sol Millen is doing with Jackie Dundee, but he's challenging the lockdown and a fine that he was given for breaching COVID law. Now, just one thing we need to make very, very clear: none of the COVID directions are laws. None of them. They're directives. Now, because the government cannot pass laws in that vein, they cannot do it. It's not in their constitutional purview, even though they don't stick to the Constitution. They use it when it suits them. So at the moment, they've got their Biosecurity Act, which was established in 2015, which we would question its validity anyway, because it should have gone to the people for consent. But the Biosecurity Act says that only a qualified biosecurity officer can enforce a biosecurity directive. Now, we've got police doing it. Now, they're not biosecurity officers, and this is one of the things that will be challenged. And also the authority of the police to question people with what do they call it? No provocation. So if I'm walking along the street and I'm minding my own business and I'm not doing anything wrong, and when I say wrong, I mean there's a lot of laws out there that are ridiculous, but there are some that are there to protect us against us, if you like. If I'm not doing anything, I'm not looking suspicious or anything like that, can't be stopped and said, produce your ID. I haven't committed a crime. I haven't done anything wrong. So there's no reason and there's no authority for me to be stopped the way that the police do. But because they've gotten away with it for so long, they're going to continue doing it. So all these things are going to be challenged in Sol's case. But as I said, it's going to need a lot of resolve and a lot of support, because it's not just a matter of standing there and being heard and being given the benefit, if you like, of the doubt. He's already been charged and, for all intents and purposes, convicted as guilty because he went against one of these so-called directives. So that's one thing. And then we've got other actions that are going ahead to do with 5G, to do with full-term abortions. There's a lot of things that are happening. But if people just look at the end result, what do we need to happen to make all of this stuff stop, so that we can take a breath and sort it out? It's we must get constitutional government back into Parliament, and that's what the Aussie Patriots role is about. And our lawful rebellion is the overarching action, if you like, where we will have as many of the groups that are out there as possible coming into our communication hubs in our communities, so that we can basically be the hub of where people go when they want to know something about something that's not right. Because we want people to ask questions, but we also want them to get relevant and also, if you like, credible information and answers to their questions.
Yeah, and I think it's now time, if anything good, for want of a better way of putting it, has come out of this COVID direction, is that a lot of the groups that have been classically divided and are sometimes bickering between themselves in sort of the suppression orders and the 5Gs and the medical freedom and now the lockdowns and now the 5G, we now are under all of the same umbrella, and we need a platform and get those names on the sheets and stand together. And this is the way to do it. This is the way to ground it, and this is the way to focus it. And so I'm totally on board. And anybody who's watching at home, I think needs to sign the roll. We're going to put it in I don't know if Mary Jane's already tagged us, but make sure you sign the roll. We'll also put up some basic lawful rebellion stuff around what we can do on the streets and some directives and what happens in lockdowns and things like that. And so that's a good place to start. And we just need more people. We just need to unite, and we need more people.
If I can just, say something, I mean, we went through a campaign a few years ago now when we were having all these problems with terrorism, and it says, if you see something, say something. And what I'd like to say to everyone out there is, if you see something and you don't think it's right, ask a question. Find out why. Find out why you think it's not right. Because at the end of the day, if you don't ask questions, you never get answers. And assuming something to be something is just crazy. And if there's one thing that we have learned over the years, and there's a few of us that have been around for quite a while, is that the only way that you will educate yourself, find out information, is to ask questions. And we hope to provide, under our lawful rebellion, with Brady's help and with Mary Jane's help and the girls over in Perth and all the other people all around Australia that are supporting us at the moment, is that we will be able to get this information under one umbrella, so that people will be able to communicate with each other, not relying always on social media, which is censored democracy, but also to ask questions and put information onto a universal site, so that everyone else can see it. Because if you know about it and you're not telling anyone, that's crazy. If you find out something, let us know. We need to know. And a stand in the park, Aussie Patriots role, is just the start. We need everyone to wake up and stand up and do something. Just do something. Go stand in the park with Brady.
And that's all we can do. If everybody stepped into their personal truth and took action, no matter what that looks like, then this could be over in a heartbeat. And so now's not the time to be lazy, and now is the time to step into your power. And I keep saying that if you think you're small, you're not, because we've all got something to offer here. And it's about the intention. It's about the intention of standing in the park, just as much as it is about standing in the park. Yeah. And it feels bloody great. Everybody who's stepping into their power right now understands the power of that bigger space, and that's the spiritual war that we're fighting here, is stepping into our own bigger space. A lot of big people need to stand together to win this war. We can't be small in it. Yeah. So yeah.
And the other thing too with that that has come out of what we're seeing with the stand in the park is that people are going there thinking, oh, I don't want to be on my own. But no, you're not on your own. There's a lot of us out there. We just need to connect together. It's all about connection. It's all about community. We talked about, a few weeks ago, we talked about community gardens and things like that. And people said, oh, yeah, but who's going to go? Trust me, if you create something in a community, people will come. Kevin Costner, if you build it, they will come. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to build something where you can come and be part of it. And you don't have to live next door or down the road. You can be in a completely different state. And as Brady's already confirmed, Canada and the UK can be in a completely different country. New Zealand, our Kiwi brothers and sisters over there, they all want answers, and the only way to get it is to get the communities united.
Yeah, and to get some energy back in these times, to take so much energy away, you end up. I've lost best mates over it. I've lost a lot of energy over it, and so to get some back, it's particularly sort of compounds and amplifies these relationships, because you're getting so much back from what you've lost. And so, yeah, okay. Well, look, great.
Thank you, Brady.
I think we stuck to the time, did we?
Pretty good, mate. Three minutes over. And Mary Jane, I just got a message. Mary Jane said the links are all in the description on this video. Good. So there's no excuse for anyone not to know who we are, where we are, and how to get hold of us.
And it's a call to action to all standers, and even some of the overseas standers. We've got to come back to this constitutional law. The current system is unlawful. It's unfair. It favours the people who are imposing this tyranny on every level. And so we need to give it a lot of credit, learn it, and unite over it, and join up with Aussie Patriots in Australia and some of the better equivalents overseas, because this needs to happen. This needs to happen.
And don't forget, share. If you've got information, share it with others. Don't just keep it to yourself, because if you watch this video, you like what you see, share it around. That's our biggest benefit of being one big world community, if you like, is that we share things with each other. Yeah. So that's it, mate. Thank you very much, Brady. Look forward to
thanks for joining us.
To being on. Thanks very much. Go on.